This nation, folks, is in grave jeopardy. Like nothing I've ever seen in my lifetime, like nothing that's happened in the last century. This nation is in grave jeopardy. We won World War II, which threatened our very existence. And we've had challenges in this nation. Huge challenges. Would we survive or not? But what's going on right now, that individuals who reject our form of government, individuals who reject representative government, individuals who will lower themselves as low as they have to go to advance a radical agenda that the American people do not want. This is different. This is different. We have a president of the United States who should have been impeached and removed from office last year. But to even mention it is considered wacko and extreme and controversial and provocative, but the framers wouldn't have thought so. We have a president of the United States who announced last month and who's announced before that he is going to rule by executive order, by fiat. We have a president of the United States who proudly campaigned across the nation, if Congress doesn't act, I will. So why do we vote? Because heads they win, tails we lose. That is, when they win elections, they insist on getting 100%. When they lose elections, they use the permanent part of the federal government, the courts, the bureaucracy, and so forth, to advance their agenda. In other words, they never lose, and they're never allowed to lose. What constitutional system? What constitutional system? Do we have one? If it is, what is it? This Congress does not function like Congress is supposed to function. The Congress is impotent. They'll tell you they're impotent. They'll tell you they can't do anything. But it's because they won't do anything. They surrender in advance, whether it's the debt ceiling or the continuing resolution or anything else. They surrender in advance. Even conservatives, even libertarians, even people who write for editorial pages that are supposed to be conservative and libertarian, they've given up on the country. They've given up on limited government and checks and balances. They've given up on federalism. They're the ones cheering, no government shutdown. Don't fight the debt ceiling. Don't bring us to the brink. And yet, when you're fighting the hardcore radical left, which rejects our system of government, which rejects our values, which has as their purpose the fundamental transformation of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, how do you battle them without battling them? How do you fight the entrenched ruling class without fighting the entrenched ruling class? How do you break the back of this debt cycle without breaking the back of the debt cycle? Now let me tell you what's actually going on here. Barack Obama intends to rule from the Oval Office. He despises this form of government. He has no interest in working with Congress. And he doesn't intend to work with Congress. Harry Reid is his water boy. Harry Reid carries water for Obama. That's all he does. That's why he's there. He obstructs when Obama wants him to obstruct, and he rams through bills when Obama wants bills rammed through. We have Obamacare because of Harry Reid, because of his sinister scheming and conniving in the shadows, violating Senate rules. That's why we have Obamacare in the first instance. But, ladies and gentlemen, they're not done remaking our country. They're not done changing your lifestyle. They don't like the way you live. They don't like what you consume. They don't like your capitalist system, your private property rights. These people aren't serving us. They're ruling over us. We aren't the sovereign. They're the sovereign. The United States Senate is, as an institution, a bastardization of what the Senate was supposed to be. In 1913, the progressives pushed through their federal income tax, and they also changed the United States Senate. Not because they want you to vote for senators, because they want to cut out the state legislatures from the federal legislative process. And that's what they did. Who do these senators represent? What is their purpose? What is the purpose of that body? It's rather odd, isn't it? Constitution would never have been ratified with the direct election of senators. How do we know this? Because the framers in the state ratification convention said so. They rejected that notion. That's why. So we have a runaway federal government, in large measure due to what the Senate has become. Now, what happened in Washington today? Listen to the news reports. They're disgusting. Are there dumber people than so-called journalists in this country? 18 times the Senate has changed its rules. 18 times. Change which rules? What rules? We've never had a simple majority for federal judges. When was that rule changed? You know, the filibuster used to be 67 votes needed in the Senate. Then they lowered it to 60. Now, when it comes to judicial nominations, other than the Supreme Court, of course, until they change their mind then they'll ram that through, too. Now, a simple majority. Now we're going to load up the federal judiciary with what? With a bunch of rabid, left-wing, radical academics. That's what we're going to do. We're going to move them out of the classroom, put them in the courts, give them black robes, call them Your Honor, and they're going to stand there and they're going to impose their will from on high. They're going to use the law to violate the law. They're going to use the Constitution to undermine the Constitution. That is exactly what's going on here. Oh, we couldn't get our 3 judicial nominees for the District of Columbia Circuit Court of Appeals confirmed. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they don't need those 3 vacancies filled, quote-unquote vacancies, because the workload there is smaller than any other circuit in the United States. We know this because the Democrats argued that just a few years ago. But they'll argue anything. Remember, the ends justifies the means. They could care less what they said a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. That's then, this is now. They're in power, and they intend to ram this stuff down our throats. Having destroyed our health care system, destroying the private sector through the EPA, having destroyed the presidency by creating this precedent of imperial power out of the Oval Office. Now they move on to the courts. And they want to stuff the courts and pack the courts, one appellate court after another, one district court after another. And I guarantee you, if he gets a Supreme Court nominee again, and he wants to put another radical knucklehead on that court, they'll change the rules again. Because the rules don't matter, whether it's Obamacare or this. They just don't matter. These men in Washington and these women in Washington, from the president to the vice president to these cabinet secretaries, to Harry Reid and his flunkies, to Nancy Pelosi and her flunkies, they have no virtue. None. They have no respect for what's gone before. The rule of law, they think they are the rule of law. Obama plans to run this government out of the Oval Office. He said as much. He has a massive bureaucracy at his fingertips. The EPA has run wild. The Interior Department has run wild. The Agriculture Department, wild. They are fundamentally transforming our country. So now, when we go to court and we challenge them, and do you know where we have to go to challenge them for a majority of these cases? To Washington. To the appellate court in Washington. To the appellate court in Washington. And they want to turn it into a kangaroo court. A joke. A rubber stamp. That's why Harry Reid did what he did. He wants to make sure if they lose that Senate, because of what they've done in Obamacare, that even if they lose at the ballot box, they will not lose at the courthouse, because that's how they conduct themselves. They accept little d democracy in the vote if they win, but they do not accept it when they lose. That's what they're doing. That's why they did this. This is tyranny. Tyranny. Not soft tyranny, not hyphenated tyranny. It's flat-out tyranny. Does anybody give a damn? Apparently not.